Hello and welcome to the Wedding Dish podcast. Grab your fork and knife and take a seat at our table as we dish on all things weddings. You'll hear stories and tips from real couples and wedding pros. Gosh, I'm already stumbling over things about love, life, and entrepreneurship. I am, of course, your hostess with the mostest on the Wedding Dish podcast, Sarah Alapin, and I am also the CEO of Photos from the Hardy and District Bliss. We have our French bulldog friend snoring very loudly today, so there is a solid chance you all are going to hear him. He is having a really good nap on the big bed that is in this room. Before we get started, if you haven't listened to last week's episode, you've got to check it out. Elliot from Hack My Honeymoon shared tips for luxury honeymoon planning on a budget, which was super duper helpful, and how to leverage your wedding expenses into honeymoon bonuses. So super good episode. I know, I'm excited about it too. Thank you everyone for tuning into the Wedding Dish today. Let's dish. Today, we are talking with the original and most sought after bridal stylist in the world, the author of Dressed, Styled, and Down the Aisle, Becoming a Stylish Bride, and the founder of The Stylish Bride, Julie Sabatino. Thank you so much for being on the Wedding Dish with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
You are the first guest who has ever gotten to see me flub the intro. So
You know what? You were covered so gracefully that I thought that it was great.
it's like no one even remembers anymore.
It's real. That's the whole part of this. It's important.
I think that's the fun thing about podcasting is you get to like be a real human
Yeah,
and have a real conversation, and you're not held to perfectionism standards.
it's true.
Or it should be anyway, for those of you out there who are interested in podcasting. Okay, so I have a bunch of questions for you that are, I mean, not a bunch. They're like 5, but they're good ones, and I'm excited to hear your answers. So, are you ready to dive in?
Absolutely. Let's dish.
Yes, I love it. You're so on board. So, with so much information and inspiration available at our fingertips, I think it can be really challenging to figure out where to look and what to trust. Where do you recommend that couples look for inspiration for their wedding attire?
So, my answer on this, and this is actually one of my favorite questions because I think that it's so hard for couples, and we have as people in general, we have so much media coming at us at all times from all angles, and it can be really hard to, tune it out. And brides and wedding couples have the same thing times 10, in my opinion. When you start following these things and the algorithm catches on, you are bombarded. So, my advice, instead of turning to social media or websites, is to actually look to your own closet. And what I talk about in the book and what I've long practiced in my business is to use yourself and teach women and grooms and men to really look to themselves for inspiration. And I want to help my readers and our clients understand who they are as people and how that translates into fashion, what they absolutely love to wear, and what makes them light up on the inside, and then help get that for them in their bridal attire for the entire weekend or however many events they're having. And there is definitely a time and a place for social media. I just don't feel that's where you should start.
Yeah, that's such a great point, because when you think about the things you feel the most confident in, the necklines, or the things you look forward to wearing the most when it's a date night, that's such a good insight, and I would have never thought about that.
Yeah. And it's funny because after doing this for so long, it kind of dawned on me one day. I'm like, you know what? You actually, if you go into your own closet, you have all the information you need there to find a wedding dress that you love. And I would go sometimes to my clients' apartments and do their styling consultation there when we begin. And it was so incredibly helpful because when you just do it through talking, it's great. But people, the way they describe themselves can actually be very different than what they wear or have or own. So and both are important, but really looking and seeing, oh, you have a lot of V-necks in your closet. You must like them. How do you feel when you're wearing it? And talk about that. And then make note of the fact that they're probably going to want to try on a V-neck wedding dress and see how that is for them.
Oh, that's such a great idea, because also, like, we're bombarded with images that are all the same dress. Like, if it's the long sleeve dress, it's that Grace Kelly dress.
Yeah.
If it's like, and there's a lot of, I mean, we're talking with the founder of the Stylish Bride. So we are talking about dresses and people who identify as, or who are just going to wear a dress or a jumpsuit or something in that vein. But so we're not going into men's attire here, in other words.
We do men as well. But yes, the perspective that we're talking about here is much more directed towards women.
Yes. And
guys are kind of easy. Like they know there are fewer options. So
yeah, it's just a different ballgame. And I almost went down the thing of like, okay, well, now a lot of men's stuff has gotten trendier in a different way, but it's a whole different conversation. I don't want to take us down that road. But that it's so, yeah. And the shoes that you have in your closet, like, think about why all of this makes perfect sense. Like, why do you have these shoes? Do you want to try a different, like, if you wear a chunky heel, or you like, think about why you wear it before you go get like a 6-inch stiletto with no level of platform.
not that anyone should do that on their wedding day. I'm just going to say.
I agree. I mean, I know there are people who do. It was not for me. I wore Toms. So I am not that the right fit for that. But that's so telling. For me, I didn't like wearing heels. So I wore flats.
Yeah.
And everyone said it was weird, but I didn't care.
And you know what? You were comfortable and probably could stand in them all night and enjoy.
Oh, yeah.
Not once think, oh my God, my feet hurt.
Oh, no. And I stepped in deer poop, and I was okay with it completely, because
oh my God.
We were basically in like a foresty part of Northern California, or Central Coast California. So okay. Explanation given. All right. Trying on your wedding attire is so exciting. I think it's one of the things that really starts making it feel real when you're planning a wedding. And because there's so much excitement surrounding that experience, I think it can be a letdown if that experience is subpar. What should couples do before going to the salon or wherever they're going to be trying on a dress or equivalent, if that maybe they're not sample size, so that they can ensure they have a wonderful experience?
Yes. Okay. There's a lot in here.
I know that's a really big question.
So there are a couple of things that I want to say. The first one is that about half of the book is dedicated to working this whole thing out. And I have a lot of exercises in there, so it's actionable advice. One of the things that I encourage people to do is called your Bridal Style Blueprint. And it helps you understand and take your personal style and body type and budget and venue and all of these things and translate it to wedding style. And I recommend that everybody do this before they go shopping, particularly because it then gives you a paragraph and all of the information you need to hand to the consultant at the store. And so the genesis of this, and the reason that I did this, was because when I'm shopping with a client and we go into a bridal salon, I know the language to speak, and I know how to talk to the consultant and say, here's what my client is looking for. This is what I'm thinking. Let's try these dresses on, and and we get it done. A bride doesn't have that same expertise, of course, and the consultant doesn't have a lot of time to get to know them. So I really wanted to distill it down and give all of the important information on a silver platter for the bride to hand to the consultant to have success at the store. So this exercise does that. And then from there, I think that you need to do your research. And I talk a lot about how to plan and schedule the appointments. And we talk about everything from like, what is your shopping style? Because I have clients that come to me who hate to shop and can only deal with going to 3 stores and burn out. And we need to go at a slow pace, and we need to sit down and have lunch, and we need to make sure that we've got an hour and a half at the store rather than an hour. All of these things, like I know how to structure it. And then I have power shoppers who can literally go for 12 hours, want to just power through, not sit down. So, what I want to do is help brides understand the deeper, I guess, like uh, methodology behind a lot of the things they're going to face so that they can prepare a day and an appointment that makes the most sense for them as who they are as people. Um, People also make decisions in really different ways. And I talk about the two different decision making styles that I most come across, and it's maximizer and satisficer. And I won't go into the whole thing with you, but knowing how you make decisions is going to be critical in the wedding dress and attire process, because otherwise you can get pressured into buying something you're not ready to buy, or miss out on something because you're agonizing. So, I want to help people really understand the ins and outs and the nuances that, you know, you don't have privy to before you go through the process.
Yeah, I think it is a very overwhelming process if you go into it blind. And
Yeah.
I think it really can like burn you and disappoint you in a way that you don't expect. So I love that you're giving people the tools that they need in order to have that so that they don't run into that problem. Like I know myself, and for me, I do not do well with being pressured. If I feel like there's any amount of like sleaze in the vendor, I'm out. That doesn't mean I won't come back and like eventually purchase, but it will be on my own terms because I hate that feeling.
Yeah.
So knowing that about yourself going in, I think is a really important piece. Like there's so much value in you arming people with that knowledge.
Yeah, it's really true. And I, also want to help people understand what the consultant's role is so that they know what to expect. And then if, let's say, for example, you're curvy or you're just not a sample size, or you have a big bust, or whatever it is, doing your research in advance and calling the stores and talking to them will help set you up for success and make your expectations realistic. And the same thing with budget, because it's not good for you or the store if you go in and you can't afford anything, or vice versa. Everything is way below your price point and not the quality you're looking for. So, really understanding the nuances and how to get the information you need is critical, and also not very available to people. So
Yeah.
there is a lot of this stuff that I've just kind of learned over 20 years that I thought, my God, it goes so much more beyond like, oh, I think I want to go see this designer and like, let's go. There's just all of this stuff that goes into it that can really make or break your experience.
Yeah, it really does. I'm so glad that you put all of that into the book. That's amazing.
Thank
Um, and of course, we'll link to that in our show notes so that everyone can easily get to it.
you. Thank you.
Um, I know that especially from this conversation, you and I both believe that inclusivity in the wedding industry is really important. What does inclusivity in the wedding industry mean? Why does it mean so much for you?
So for me, I come at it from the angle of not being a typical sample size. And it was really, really hard for me when I was shopping for my own dress, which was now in 2001. So I've been married a long time. And I had absolutely no idea that I was going to go in and put on a lot of dresses that didn't fit and have to go outside and show everybody that I was with the back wide open. And it was absolutely humiliating. So, for me, inclusivity is showing beautiful weddings and showing beautiful brides that are that look different than what you see time and time and time again. Now, with that said, we have so many absolutely beautiful clients that we put out there as well. But I really think that um, representing more people and talking about the differences is it's an important piece. It's something I feel really strongly about.
Yeah, I agree too. And I think that I'm sorry you had that experience. That is one of the worst things. And it can happen for so many different reasons. It can be, your bust. Like it
Exactly.
can be that you zip until there or whatever the case may be. And it no matter what, it doesn't feel good.
It's true.
Um,
And
yeah.
it's funny because, I mean, really, unless you're like 5'8" or taller with a B cup and a size 4, you're not going to fit into the dress in one way or another. You could be super tiny and the dress is going to be enormous on you. You could be much bigger or bustier or whatever. So a vast majority of women aren't going to fit into these dresses. And one of the things that I spend a lot of time talking about in the book is your imagination tolerance, because at every step of the way, you're going to be asked to imagine the dress when it is longer, bigger, your size, tailored, different color, when it comes to
Bustled.
touch, when it's bustled, when it's new, when it's this, and that. There's so much. And, are you somebody who can actually envision these things? Or do you need to kind of see it as close as you can get, and how to do that in the appointment to understand, because people can really get very nervous and can have a lot of challenges around that too. So it's not always an easy process, but there are some things that you can do to make it better, and I talk a lot about how to do that.
That's amazing. So my final question is a two-parter.
Okay,
Um,
I love a two-part question. Okay.
they're related. So who should couples take with them when they go shopping? And what tips can you provide that would set them up for success during that shopping appointment?
So set the bride up for success, or the a person who's accompanying them?
Ooh, can we do both? It's a
Yes.
three-parter now.
Oh, I love it. Okay. Sure. So I think that choosing who you bring with you is really, really important. And making it one or two people is really the very best way. And I don't know anybody in my industry that would disagree with that. However, it's not always the reality. And, I was just with someone the other day that had two sisters and a mom, and they were all really close. And then we had the bride, and then we had me and Dee, who works with me. And it was just this big group of people. And you can get a lot of opinions that way, and it can just feel a little bit more. We actually had a wonderful day, so it wasn't that. But I've known the family for years, and it was great. But it can just be a lot coming at you. But you can also bring one and it's the wrong one, and you can have a disastrous experience too. So, really, the thing that's the most important is for you to pick somebody who can look at it from your lens. So, whenever I can gently say to the guests, like, okay, so first and foremost, my personal rule is I never speak before the bride speaks when she comes out of the dressing room, except to say, what do you think? How do you feel? And it's really, really important to let them talk first. And then also, when people start going down the path, and it's very hard to avoid sometimes, is like, well, when I was married, I did blah, 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 or I wore this, or I tried this. And it can be hard, right? Because you need to do your own thing. So bringing people that can understand that and analyze and assess something for the person that's trying it on instead of for themselves and their own personal opinions, I think is really important. But also giving them the space to make their own decision and respect that, I think is really important. And people have really good intentions, and it's very rarely an issue. You just have to watch out when you want to bring all four of your bridesmaids and your mom and your sister, and it can just become like a total zoo, uh, and that can be hard.
Yeah, for sure.
Did I
Yeah.
answer all three parts? Friends,
Um,
right? Yeah, how to pick. To pick
yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, you did. You did. I think that's really helpful. I mean, the to add on from my own experience, my maid of honor, who was my best friend since I was 6, she cannot visualize.
Yep.
But it would have been devastating for me to like leave her out. So what I did was I just went into it with the mindset of like, she's probably going to say some things that feel like the wrong thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fine because she just can't visualize what it looks like.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. Yeah, and knowing
Thanks.
your who your audience is going into it.
Yeah. And not letting it get your anxiety up in advance or whatever, just kind of accepting everyone as they are
Mhm.
and then moving forward from there. I
It's
think,
true. And, it's also can be a good idea to give them a job. So, sometimes when you have the designated picture taker or video taker or, keeper of the information, then it can help that person navigate. But it's funny, I mean, I don't know if you're finding this too, but brides today really decide by consensus. And I often talk to them, and after the shopping day, they'll say, "Oh, well, I sent it to all my friends, and some people really think it's blah blah blah
yes.
blah." And I'm like, "Oh my god, I don't even know what to say," because they're sending iPhone pictures of a dress that doesn't fit in to them, and getting like everybody's opinion on it. And I know that that's how this generation works. It's foreign to me when I got married, but um, it's definitely something that we have to work with and be like, okay, well, so maybe it was the angle of the camera, or maybe the lighting, or the dress didn't fit. It's challenging.
Yes, I agree. I am finding that. And the iPhone camera is literally the least flattering camera as a photographer because it is multiple wide angle lenses compressing you into that's why the front facing camera victimizes you so often. And you like open it and you're like, God, I look like that.
No,
Um,
I didn't know this.
yeah, so otherwise you'd have to hold it so far away, it wouldn't be able to focus, and your arm isn't that long. So you have to be able to hold it within arm's length. So it's in a wide angle lens, multiple wide angle lenses. So
Holy
it's
cow! I did not know this.
it's literally the least flattering you're ever going to look is an iPhone camera or like a cell phone camera.
Oh my god!
I have people come to me all the time and say, I don't photograph well. I don't look good in photos. This photo of me didn't look good when I tried this on. And I'm like, well, that's because it's literally the worst camera. It's the worst way you could see yourself. And that doesn't mean you can't get beautiful photos with an iPhone. It's just like realistically, it is not what you're going to look like in your pictures on your wedding day. So let this be your PSA, everyone.
Oh my gosh. That is really great information, because I've always thought, and I'm sure this was sold to me by Apple, like, oh, the iPhone, it's like as good as any other camera, and all those ads are really effective.
Yeah, and you totally believe it
Yeah.
because when it's a picture that's taken of you that's a full body picture, that may be the case. It may look just as good, but it's never going to take the place of an actual camera that's a lens that is used at an appropriate distance from you.
Wow.
And that's not the way you're photographed at your dress appointment or
Yeah.
you're photographed closer up. And so it's always going to not be flattering. It's really going to enhance that dress doesn't fit you.
Wow. Well, that is amazing information. Thank you for teaching me something for sure.
I had no idea I was coming in with that today. But I get told that all the time. People will say something about their cheeks or like their chin or their nose, and that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, food
So,
for
in case your camera ever makes you feel personally victimized, it is actually distorting
That is so good to know. Thank you.
you. Well, on that note, thank you everyone for tuning into the Wedding Dish podcast today. And Julia, thank you so much for being here today. Where can people find you online? And we'll, of course, link to your book, but in terms of like social media and your website.
Well, thank you very, very much for having me. It was really a pleasure talking to you. And our website's thestylishbride.com, and our Instagram handle is at thestylishbride. So we're there, and love questions. If we can help at all, please reach out for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. You're clearly a wealth of knowledge. So, and just delightful to have a conversation with. This has been so fun.
Well, thank you for having me. I feel the same way.
So make sure you go follow The Stylish Bride. And of course, we'll link to the book in the show notes and the episode description. And while you're doing that, you can follow us at The Wedding Dish Podcast on Instagram. And we are theweddingdishpodcast.com, where you can get our show notes, link out to the book, and get all that good stuff too, plus some tips and things that I had you submit before. And don't forget to tune in next week. We have another amazing episode. Give us a follow, rate, and review on your preferred podcast platform. And Julie, again, thank you so much for being here. This was such a fun episode.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Talk soon.
Bye.